Well, let's go ahead and get started.
Do
My
it.
clock says it's 8:04. We want to give Ember as much time as possible. So, just to introduce myself, I'm Brittany. I think most of you know me, but I own Get Out There Girl, which is a company dedicated to empower women through adventure, self-compassion, and making connections with other women. I personally have dealt with lots of mental health issues, to put it nicely. I've had severe postpartum depression, and then I've just struggled my whole life with lack of self-esteem and confidence and self-worth and just knowing my identity. And the last 4 years, I've been able to really turn the corner and become a better version of myself. And I'm really happy right now. And I love Get Out There Girl and the opportunity it gives me to be in touch with other women and to connect with them on these awesome retreats. I have one retreat coming up that is open for signups right now. There's a few spots left if anybody's interested. It's a yoga and a hiking retreat in Logan, Utah. Last year, Ember went with me on my yoga retreat. It was really awesome. So this year we're not camping. This year I've actually rented a mansion. Quite the opposite of last year. But with all of the COVID guidelines, I thought a mansion was pretty key and pretty nice so that we can spread out. And then hiking and yoga are pretty social distancing safe activities. But it's I still have a few spots open if anybody's interested in that. It's June 12th through the 14th. And then also my self-compassion workbook. If anybody is interested in this too, you can just send a chat link or just send me a chat and I'll send you a link to look into it more. But it's 15 days to learn how to treat yourself like a friend. It walks you through a different task every single day, helps you uncover your inner critic, and just learn how to apply compassion instead of criticism to yourself. We're often really good at that to other people. We're really good friends to other people and speaking gentle. And then when it comes to ourselves, we're really harsh and critical. And the Compassionate Workbook helps turn that. So if anybody's interested, let me know. Ember, I'm really excited. I've got my worksheet out, and I'm so grateful that you are going to teach us this skill of confidence. I believe that confidence is a skill that we can develop, and it's the key to unlocking the way to accomplish our goals. You have to have confidence to accomplish your goals and believing in yourself. So I'm excited.
Right. I'm excited too. Well, thank you, Brittany. I just want to start out with thank you for this opportunity. This is something that I'm pretty passionate about. And just a quick introduction about me. So I have a degree in education and psychology. I've always found the human brain to be just absolutely fascinating. And I'm the mom of 5 kids. I'm an entrepreneur. I've been an educator in a variety of ways over the last 2 decades. And I'm just excited to take you through this little journey of developing the skill of confidence. So hopefully most of you have your worksheet printed off. It is like 5 pages. It just kept growing, but hopefully it will be useful to you as we walk through each step. I'm a hands-on learner, so I love to hear it and take notes, and then I can really internalize it. But you know, it just depends on what kind. You can use this, or if you find it cumbersome, don't. But hopefully it will be helpful to you. So I think that sometimes we look at someone and we think, oh, she must have been born with confidence, right? Have you ever met someone that is just so confident and you think, oh, that must just like come natural? Did she come that way? And some people might be, but really we're going to explore today that confidence is a skill that you can develop. So the other thing about confidence is that most of us think, oh, I would be more confident if I achieved this goal, or if I could have this promotion at work, or if I could lose these extra pounds that I have on me, or if I had more money, or whatever it is, right? Whatever that thing is, we think that confidence will be the end, that we will be confident whenever that thing happens. And the truth is that confidence is required to do all those things, right? So it begins with confidence. We kind of have that flipped. Instead of confidence being at the end, we need to begin with confidence to achieve that goal, right? To lose the extra weight if that's your goal, to get that promotion, to basically just live the life that you want. We have to start with confidence in order to achieve that result. So it is a skill that can be developed, and the good news is that confidence is within you. So it's not something that you have to be born with or be natural at. It is within you, and I'm going to show you how you can do that. And that how powerful it really is when you discover that confidence is within you, and it will help you succeed in every aspect of your life. All right, so I always like to just start with let's define things, right? Because I think all of us have our own idea of what confidence is in our head. We have like the dictionary definition and things like that, but all of us kind of have life experiences and things and thoughts about confidence. So we're going to start in this first box on your worksheet that just says confidence, and I'm going to give you a minute to think about it, and I want you to write down what you think confidence is. It will give us a really good base of understanding to go from. So what I want you to write in there is, what is confidence to you? What does confidence mean to you? All right. So as you look through your definition of confidence, it will be a little bit different for all of us. And that's okay. It should be personalized. What I want you to do as you look at your definition is just read through it and think, and just be open to the idea that your definition of confidence might be outdated. Or look for things that your definition of confidence might have been influenced by a parent, or maybe a boss, one that was highly critical, or whatever, or maybe a family member, or maybe just your life experiences. But be open to the idea. I want you to be really open to the idea that your idea of confidence might be something you could change or evolve. And I don't want you to be critical of it. Just notice, has it been influenced by someone else? And that it might be different than what you thought it was. So we're going to start with, I've been reading Brene Brown's book, Daring Greatly. And if any of you are familiar with Brene Brown, she's an emotions researcher. She's really involved in the emotion of shame and vulnerability. And she's researched those emotions for over a decade. And what she has found, she calls these people that she has researched, these people who are thriving, she calls them living a wholehearted life. And she finds that in the people who are living a wholehearted life, they have a life defined by courage, compassion, and connection. And as she has researched these people, they all have one thing in common. They are confident. They know their worth, and they are confident beings. And so then they're able to live their life with courage, compassion, and connection. And isn't that what we're all trying to achieve in this life? That's kind of the root of all of that. And so in order to live a life that way, confidence is essential. And she has actually proved that through research. So we need confidence to have courage. We need confidence to have compassion for ourselves and for others, and we need confidence for true connection. So it's basically, confidence is at the root of everything that's good in our lives, right? And it's also, like Brittany mentioned in the beginning, it's the gateway to our success. It's how we achieve our goals. It's how we live the life we want. So confidence is an emotion, right, that we feel. And I think most of us can determine really easily if someone's confident or if they're cocky. So we're going to kind of start there. So when a person is confident, they do not feel this emotion. Is that big enough that you can see? Can you see that? Okay. So we're going to talk about pride. So on your worksheet, just leave this new definition blank for right now. We'll come back to that. So we're going to move to this section with the 3 boxes. So when we see someone who is cocky, or when we're being cocky, right, really the root of that is pride. And pride says, look at me, I'm better than others, right? I do this better than you or someone else, or I'm more lovable, or look what I've done, or my worth is tied to something that I achieve, right? And all those things cause us to feel the emotion of pride, right? So to tie it back in, if you've watched the other webinars in Brittany's series, this would be self-adulating, right? And pride is rooted in comparison, right? So when we feel pride, all of our thoughts are, look at me, I'm better than others, I do this better than, I'm more lovable, whatever that is, right? So it's rooted in comparison. So all of us are pretty certain that this isn't confidence, right? But sometimes we get a little bit confused. So then we go to the other opposite end of the spectrum. So instead of feeling pride, we feel shame, okay? So shame says, I'm not good enough. I'm not as whatever as her. I'm not as tall as her. I'm not as talented. I'm not as good of a cook as her. I'm not as pretty as her. I'm unlovable. Or my worth is tied to what I do and what I don't do, right? My needs don't matter. I'm not enough. I'm inadequate. I'm unworthy, right? So Paige would say this is self-denigrating, but it's also rooted in comparison, right? So this is also us comparing ourselves with someone else. I'm not good enough, or I'm not as good as this person, or things like that. So on this end of the spectrum, we have pride, then we have shame. Both are just rooted in comparison. And then what we have here in the middle is confidence. Now, confidence says, I am enough. I am worthy of love. I know that I'm amazing. I am whole. I'm an infinite soul. My needs matter. I am valuable. I trust myself. I'm exactly who I should be. I love me exactly as I am. My worth is fixed and unchangeable. So confidence isn't centered in comparison. Confidence is centered in truth, okay? And when we're centered in truth, then we can be confident. So I hope that makes sense, and we will come back to kind of this continuum too. So hopefully that makes sense. We all know what pride is. We've all experienced shame. And the goal is to stay here, centered in truth, not in comparison, but in truth, and be confident. So then all this, our culture also values humility. And sometimes I think it's hard to think, can I be confident and still be humble at the same time? And sometimes we think that's a little bit of a paradox, right? That they are at odds with each other. Well, I'm going to say that most of us believe that we were created, whatever power you believe that by, right? That we are an infinite soul and that we have a spirit. And quite honestly, no matter what you believe, we had nothing to do with our own creation. We did not create ourselves in any way. Now we can learn and we can grow and we can better ourselves, but we exist because we were created, and we can give credit to whoever created us. So we don't have to turn to shame to think that's humility, right? That we're lesser than other people, or that we have to be unworthy or unlovable to be humble. Humility is centered in truth. So humility and confidence can exist together because they're both centered in truth. So when I'm humble, I give credit to who created me, whatever my belief is about that. I believe that I was created by God, and I can love myself completely because I'm whole and I'm exactly as I should be. And I was created, I'm perfectly imperfect, but I was created this way and just the way that I am. So confidence and humility exist together because they exist here in the middle in truth. There's no distortion, there's no comparison. You can be confident and humble at the same time. And I think that's something that a lot of us struggle with. There's a little bit of a wrestle of, am I too confident or am I being humble? But this rings true to me, that both are centered in truth. Okay, I have just a little slideshow before we move into our keys of confidence. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen. And let's see. Did that work? Oh, yay. Can you guys see that? Okay. So I'm just going to take you through a little bit of a slideshow. This is just a little bit of a journey of last year, a few of the places that I went. And so this first slide is a picture of Johnson's Reservoir, and it's right next to Fish Lake, and we usually go to Fish Lake every year. And this, we went early in the season, so you can see there's still snow in those mountains, and lots of melting. The reservoir was beautiful and clear, and it was a beautiful day. And there's really cool rock formations nearby that were really fun for us to climb on, and we loved it. But this was just, I mean, this is an amateur photo. This is just what I took, but it was a beautiful scene, and I loved that one. So next we went to Gunlock Falls. So this is in southern Utah at Gunlock Reservoir, and it did not have waterfalls for about 6 or 7 years because we didn't have enough water. But last year we had a ton of water, lots of snowpack, and it's a natural reservoir, so it doesn't have like it's just a natural spillway. If it's overflowing, these are the falls that are created. So you can kind of see in that picture, there's a person, there's a few people in there, just how expansive and how massive these are. So it was beautiful. The red rock and then just this natural spillway was just breathtaking. So then, oh, there we go. Oh, I skipped a few. Okay, here we go. So then next we went to Great Basin National Park and to Lehman's Caves. And we went into Lehman Cave, and there were stalactites and stalagmites, and it was just ever changing and ever evolving, and these huge caverns that you can walk through, and how there were just, everything was new, and each place was different, and it was just spectacular in its own way. And then nearby, we went on a hike and hiked around 2 alpine lakes that were near a glacier on that mountain. And these lakes were so spectacular. They weren't very deep, so they freeze all the way through, and there's no fish because they freeze solid in the winter. But look at that green color. I mean, that's just a photo from my phone, but that's really it was so green. It was just beautiful and breathtaking. And then especially with all the pine trees that were surrounding it, it was amazing. And this is my cute daughter who's being very confident. So, and then this is near Calf Creek. We went there next, and this is kind of a rare glimpse inside the canyon. Down along Calf Creek is just like a whole oasis, but on both sides, there's like 4 different colors on all these walls. There's red and black and yellow and gray, and it's just an oasis in the middle of a desert, and it's breathtaking. So next, this is Brittany's yoga retreat that I went on, and this was a little patch of heaven in its own way. We were right on the bend of a river, and I just kept looking at it thinking, is this for real? Like, this is kind of something you'd see in a photograph. So this was a gorgeous place. This is Provo Falls. We took my kids, you can see my kids playing at the bottom for some reference. This is up above Camas where the Provo River starts, and just spectacular with all the layers of rocks and things like that. And then we went to Moab. This is Corona Arch. It's not actually in the park, it's outside the arch, but you can see us there in the bottom. You can see how spectacular this arch is, and just the red rock, and it's gorgeous. While we were there, we kind of in the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the bottom of the arch. We had taken our pictures and we were starting to back on the trail, and a huge boulder fell off of the base of that arch. And they tell you all the time that the arches are changing and that pieces fall all the time because, you know, that's just kind of the nature of the rock and the arches, and that they're ever evolving. And we got to watch it happen. It was so crazy. It fell down into the ravine. It sounded like a train, like it was so crazy. But this was breathtaking, just beautiful. So then next, oh, my computer's a little slow. Okay, so then we are snowboarders in our family. So this is Sundance Mountain while we were snowboarding. I ski, everyone else snowboards, but this was a beautiful day in the winter, and just so pretty. Now that's just a little snapshot into a few of the places where I went last year. And as I went and I was able to appreciate the beauty of each place, every place had flaws, right? And every place had something that was breathtaking and spectacular. And each place was created with care, it was perfectly imperfect, right? And each place was exactly how it should be. And never once in any of that time did I think, well, Gunlock Falls was way better than Calf Creek, or the yoga retreat place, that little patch of heaven, was so much better than Sundance Mountain, right? I just appreciated each creation as it was, as the breathtaking, perfectly imperfect thing that it was. And that's exactly the same with us. We were created in that exact same way, and some of us are like the waterfall, and some of us are like that river, the stream that we were at the bend of the river on the yoga retreat, and some of us are like Lehman's Caves with all sorts of undiscovered parts, and we were never meant to be compared. We were just meant to be appreciated. So we are ready to move into key number 1. So key number 1, I'm going to erase this. Can you guys see my whiteboard okay, or is there too much glare? Is it okay? All right, key number 1. To introduce key number 1, I'm just going to tell you a short story. So Brian and I were engaged on March 31st, and it was a long time ago, way before Instagram, way before Facebook. And we were engaged in the evening, and so we couldn't just post to the world our good news, right? So we got to share our good news the following day. Well, the following day is April 1st. And as you all know, that's a little bit of a tricky day to share some good news like, oh, we're getting married. And some people believed us, some people didn't. It was like this giant joke, right? Some people really found out weeks later that we really were engaged. But we had this experience where we were at Brian's apartment and the girls next door came over and I showed them my ring and we shared our good news. And they stayed for a little while and really didn't know whether to believe us or not. And as they were walking out the door, before the last girl shut the door, I heard one of them say, "Oh, that ring is totally fake. There is no way that that ring is real." And my first reaction was just like shock, like total shock, right? Like, I can't believe she just said that. And then the door closed, and then I thought, that's so dumb. Like, I totally know that my engagement ring is real, right? I have a certificate of authenticity. I know exactly how much we paid for it. I know it's a real diamond. I know it's, my ring is totally real. But to her, and because of the situation and the day and all of those things and her perception, she totally thought my ring was fake. And she thought we were just teasing. Now, I didn't need her to think my ring was real, right? I didn't need her to tell me that my diamond was valuable because I knew it. I knew that my ring was real, that my diamond was real, that my ring was valuable. And I didn't need her to say, oh yeah, that's totally valuable, right? People will not always value us. So confidence is knowing your worth and that you are valuable. People don't need to validate that for you. And if they say, you're totally fake, that's their perception, right? She was misinformed. She was wrong. She was simply wrong in her perception. And some people might just say, I don't like diamonds, I prefer rubies. And that's okay too. Then she goes and finds her rubies, right? So her saying my ring was fake didn't make it any less valuable. It said something about her perception or her preference, but it didn't say anything else about my ring. So key number 1 is loving me is my job. I'm going to change my marker. Loving me is my job. So Byron Katie says that it's not your job to like me, it's mine. That's her quote. And I love that quote because it's not anyone else's job to love us, it's ours. And that's the key number 1, right? So if you're the one that's centered in truth, you're the one that knows your value, and you're the one that decides whether you're valuable or not, right? That recognizes that truth. That's empowering. You don't need anyone else to validate that you are your confidence and that you're of worth and value and that you're enough. Because guess whose job that is? That's yours. It's a huge responsibility, but it's also super powerful. You don't want to give that power away, right? If you give that power to someone else, you're at their mercy, right? But as you hold that truth, as you love you and take on that loving you is your job, that is empowering. So I want you to say out loud, I want you to say, loving me is my job. Awesome. You don't need anyone to send you a text message. You don't need anyone to tell you how wonderful you are, because loving you is your job. And that's powerful because the ball is in your court. You're in charge. Okay, key number 2. Key number 2 has 2 parts, and it will make sense how they come together. So just stay with me. So key number 2 is recognizing that, well, it's taming your inner critic and loving all the parts of you. So first we're going to talk about taming your inner critic. So first of all, you have to kind of recognize that within all of us, there's a little bit of a wrestle. So there's the part of us that has always existed, our true self. Some of us call that our spirit. Some of us call it our soul. And that part of us is centered in truth, right? And then we have this little voice inside of our head, right? And and sometimes it's really judgmental of us and of other people, really, and says some really terrible things to us. And there's this ongoing wrestle between our soul or our spirit and this inner critic. Some people, so it usually asks you questions too. Have you noticed this? It will either tell you something really judgmental or horrible about you, or it will ask you a question like, why can't you do that? What's wrong with you? Why do you even try? Who do you think you are? Right? You know that voice. You know that voice that's in you. What does she say to you? So depending on your beliefs, we can say this in a couple of different ways. So some psychologists would say it's the wrestle between our ego and our sacred self. And that's how they would explain it. More religious-based might say that it's the natural man or the carnal part of us versus our spirit. For today, I think it's some good terminology, just a blanket terminology, no matter what your beliefs are. Inner critic and our infinite soul. It's that wrestle between that inner critic and then our soul. So to develop confidence, we need to be aware of the wrestle between the two. And most of us acknowledge that spirit or soul or that sacred self part of us, that exists. And sometimes we try to just ignore the inner critic or silence her or shove her down. And I am going to say that in order to develop confidence, you're going to have to acknowledge that inner critic, and you're going to have to be kind to her because she is a part of you. So you don't have to believe what she tells you, and you can redirect her, but she is a part of you. So silencing her doesn't usually work, but you can redirect and offer a new thought, right? So, so we must be kind, tell her to quiet down, say, oh, quiet down, it's okay, right? And then without judgment, just offer a new thought. So I'm going to just give you a few examples. On the last page of your worksheet, I've listed these. So if you want to follow along. So when your inner critic says, you really messed up. Have you ever had that voice say that? You really messed this up. You can say back to her, sometimes I make mistakes. And I love me anyway. When she says, who do you think you are? Well, I'm an infinite soul and I love me. Why are you even trying, right? Because I learned from my mistakes and I always try. When she says, what's wrong with you? Nothing's wrong. I'm just exactly how I should be. You're not enough. I am enough. I'm lovable. I'm worthy. You have flaws. You know, when that little voice points out your flaws, whatever they are, right? I know, and I love all the parts of me. That was a total failure. My voice says that. That was a total failure, right? Failing means learning. and I'm learning to succeed. So I want you to really think in this key number 2, how you can answer your inner critic and the things that you can redirect to. Because the more that we nurture our spirit or our soul, that infinite soul within us, by redirecting the inner critic to these, the more they'll come in alignment. And the more that this inner critic will silence itself, because you're constantly redirecting. So that's part of taming your inner critic. The second part of this is loving all the parts of you. So the way that we've been taught about confidence, I think a lot in our world, is that we're invincible and we're fearless, that we never, we just go out and do whatever we want to, and that we're so great all of the time. And parts of that are true, right? I think part of that is true. But what happens when we make a mistake? I don't know about you, but I make mistakes all the time. What happens when things don't go so great? If our confidence is tied to being fearless, and sometimes we feel fear, then what happens to our confidence? Well, it kind of gets null and voided, right? So our confidence cannot be tied to being great, right? Because we can't always be great. And then we can't always be confident, right? So confidence is accepting and loving who we are, living in that truth, right? Centered in our truth, loving who we are, all the parts of us. So confidence is knowing that I am great, and sometimes I'm not great. And I am so strong, and sometimes I'm weak. That I am talented, and sometimes I'm clumsy. That I am a really kind person, and I'm mean. Sometimes I'm smart, and sometimes I'm just ignorant. And that I'm all of these things, and it's okay. Because I love all of the parts of me. I choose to love me exactly as I am. I'm perfectly imperfect. I wasn't created to be perfect yet. I'm perfectly imperfect. So I'll give you an example. I think I'm a very kind person. In fact, I used to tell people I was like the kindest kid on the block, right? And I do think I'm innately kind. And I'm the mother of 5 children. And sometimes I yell at them. I know, crazy. And that's mean. So if my confidence is that I am kind, what happens when I yell? Well, if it's tied to that, then I can't be confident. But if I recognize I am innately a kind person, and you know what? Sometimes I'm mean. And I'm working on that. And because I have confidence, I can, right? But I love all the parts of me. I love that I'm great and when I'm not great, and I'm strong and when I'm weak. So confidence is accepting and loving who we are and living in that truth. All right, so that brings us to key number 3. So we have taming your inner critic, how you're going to answer that part of you back and redirect, and loving all the parts of you, even the imperfect parts. That is really such a key part of developing confidence, is to accept and love yourself as you are, because then when you're confident, you can change some of those things that you don't love as much about yourself. But you have to have confidence first. Okay, number 3. And this, when I learned this, it blew my mind. It turned my world totally upside down. So if you haven't learned anything like this yet, I can't wait for it to be like your whole world to be turned on its head. So number 3 is our thoughts create our feelings. And this is great news. So if you think back to our continuum, where we had pride over here and shame over here, right? So pride, when we feel the emotion of pride, the thoughts that we're thinking are, look at me, I'm better than others, I'm better than her. Oh, my outfit's cuter than her, my hair is better than her. I'm more lovable, look what I've done. Look what I've accomplished, right? So when we have any of those types of thoughts, the feeling that we feel is pride. Now, when we think the thoughts, I'm not good enough, I'm inadequate, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable, my worth is tied to the things that I do, the feeling that we feel is shame, right? So those thoughts in our head create the feeling. Now, when we're centered in truth and have all of the true statements, our true thoughts of we feel confident, right? I am enough. I'm worthy of love. I love me. I trust myself. I'm valuable. I'm whole. I'm complete. Then I feel the emotion of confidence. So the cool thing, I'm going to put this whole model up for you. I knew it would take up a lot of space, but this is the entire model. We're not going to go over it tonight, but you guys see all that? Can you see that last? Oh, good. Okay. So whatever circumstance we're in our life is neutral. And then we have a thought about it. And how we think about that circumstance creates a feeling. And as human beings, we're driven by our emotions and by our feelings. So that feeling causes us to act in some way. And that action creates our result. So you'll see in your worksheet on key number 3, you'll see that circumstances trigger thoughts, thoughts create feelings, feelings cause our action, and action creates our result. Now, tonight we're not going to get into all of this, but this is life-changing. Tonight we're going to just focus on our thoughts create our feelings. Okay, now this isn't just like the power of positive thinking. You know, you like any good motivational speech or church lesson or whatever about we just need to change our thoughts, right? Which just sounds really great, but our thoughts have been like making all sorts of neural pathways in our brain for years and years and years, and they've turned into deeply held beliefs, right? So these thoughts and beliefs create feelings. Now, because we've practiced those thoughts over and over and they become beliefs, we have to learn to manage our thoughts. And this comes right back to what Paige was teaching us in the first webinar and what Becky talked about in the second webinar. It is truth. This is truth, that our thoughts, if we have to manage our thoughts, if we want to feel something different. You guys, this is powerful. It's so powerful. It has changed my life. So earlier in my life, I felt pretty controlled by emotions, and I would think things like, how could I not feel this? How could I not feel disappointed? Or how could I not feel this way? And I felt like my emotions controlled me. And they kind of did, because I didn't know this. And now I feel like I'm more in the driver's seat, that I can recognize what I'm feeling and what's behind that. And if I want to change that, I can. So my thoughts and beliefs create my emotions, and that's empowering. Because I'm not at the mercy of anyone else. I'm not at the mercy of my own emotions. I can create my reality, which is like one of the most powerful things that you'll ever encounter. So our brains are amazing. And I mentioned that I have always been fascinated with brains and what they do. So this is not just like the power of positive thinking, right? This is like the field of positive psychology has been they have been researching and proving this over and over the last 30 years. And previous to that, the field of psychology really studied abnormalities in, the brain and things. And now there's this whole field of psychology that has opened up a whole new world So we have the ability to retrain our brains. It was once believed that our brains couldn't be retrained. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? That has been totally disproven. Our brains are so awesome. There's this thing called neuroplasticity. It means that we can change literally the way our brains think, the ability to create new neural pathways in them. And this is exactly what we're going to do to retrain your brain to be more confident. So I want you to think about one of your thoughts, either something your inner critic says, you know, that voice, what does she say to you? Or something that maybe you just have a deeply held belief that someone maybe told you, oh, she's fake, or she's not good enough, or you're not this enough, or you're just not enough, right? And you believed that over and over. I want you to choose one of those thoughts. Then what we're going to do is redirect, and we're going to create a new neural pathway in your brain. And it will be new, so it will be a little bit tricky, and it will take a lot of practice, just like any skill. But we're going to redirect and find a new thought. And when your inner critic offers you a negative thought, you can redirect to a new confident one. But it has to be something that you do mostly believe to be true. You can't just jump to something that you don't really believe, right? Or that you haven't. It can't be too much of a stretch. So you might have to do this in stages. So I want you to choose a new thought. Now, I have on the very last page at the bottom, I have a list of empowering thoughts. I'm just going to read those out loud. And I want you to listen to these thoughts. Now, these are just some that I really like and from some other people that I really like, but you can totally come up with your own. So I want you to choose one that you can redirect to. I am an infinite soul. I love me. I love me anyway. I'm exactly who I should be. I choose to love me exactly as I am. I love this one. Anytime my inner critic says something like, oh, that went poorly, and I can say, and that's okay. That's okay. I love me anyway. I am enough. I am worthy. I've got this if I need a little bit more of a boost. I'm here to learn. I get to try my best every day. I am whole. I love all the parts of me. I am the perfect version of me. If you can get to this one, awesome. I am a rock star. I am lovable. I learn from my mistakes. I love me. Everything I need is within me. My needs matter. I am strong. I am divine. Loving me is my job. I am complete. So it turns out that the way that you talk to yourself becomes the way you feel about yourself. I want you to choose that thought and really, and you don't have to choose it now. There's an exercise coming up too that you can choose it then, but this kind of brings us full circle. So I hope that you can see that by developing confidence and feeling confident and truly believing those things about yourself, that it will help you live a wholehearted life, right? Because then you can have courage, you can have compassion with yourself and others, and connection. And I hope that you can see kind of that full circle. So I'm going to just recap what we have learned tonight, because we kind of cruised through a lot. So we learned what confidence is, and we talked about what confidence is not, right? That it's centered in truth and not in pride or shame or in comparison. So then we talked about key number 1, and we talked about how loving you is your job and loving me is my job. And and how empowering that is. That's power. Key number 2 is loving all the parts of us, the good and the bad, to just accept us how we are and loving all the parts of us, right? And learning how to tame that inner critic, that voice within our heads, and learn how to tame her and get her on board with a new way of thinking and a new confident way of thinking. That's power. Key number 3, that our thoughts create our feelings. And if we want to feel differently, then we have the power within us to change our thoughts and our beliefs by thinking those thoughts over and over. Next, I have a call to action. So I want you to commit to sitting down for a little while, either tonight or sometime in the next week. And I want you to do the following 4 things. So on the first page of your worksheet, we left this new definition of confidence. We left that blank. So that's your first action step. I want you to ponder, really ponder and decide what your new definition of confidence is. And be okay that it will be different than what you thought it was. And that maybe this old definition of confidence is a little outdated. And so you get to create a whole new one. So number 2, on page 3 of your worksheet, I have, it says at the top, take action. So the next thing I want you to do is list 60 things that you love about you. Some of you will cruise right through, and some of you, it may take days, and that's okay. Do all 60. And if 60 was too easy, do 100. But I want you to name 60 things that you love about you. So you always have something to fall back on and appreciate about who you are and just the amazing, complete, whole person that you are. Okay, number 3. In this box down here, it says, my truth. That's where I want you to select your new thought. You need to think of a new, empowering, confident thought that you can redirect to anytime that you're hard on yourself or that inner critic starts speaking really loudly in your ear. She's really loud sometimes. A thought that you can redirect to. So it's redirecting those, creating a new neural pathway, redirecting that brain, right? Paige and Becky would say this is reframing. I call it redirecting, and it needs to be centered in truth, right? It needs to be centered in truth and a confident, empowering thought. I read you a whole list, and they're on the back page. If you want to use one of those, that's great. If you want to come up with your own, do it. When I did this, the thought I redirected to and that really rang true to me was, I love all the parts of me. I love all the parts of me. And that rang true to me. And I put it on my bathroom mirror and I looked at it for 3 months, the same thought. And that's as any time that a negative thought about me or what I had done or anything to do with me, I would redirect to, and I love all the parts of me. Isn't that great? And so I want you to put it somewhere, right? Put it somewhere that you can see and that it does actually retrain your brain. All right, the next page I have for you, number 4, is if you're ready to dig a little deeper. And I do hope you'll take some time to do this. So these are some journaling prompts that I want you to do. And the first one is, how would confidence show up in my world? What would your world be like? What would your life be like? How would confidence show up? Beliefs I'd have about myself if I was 100% confident. What are those beliefs that you would have? And I want you to write them down because that's the goal, to get to those. What would I be doing in my life if I were more confident, right? What actions would you be taking if you were more confident and operated from a place of confidence rather than pride or shame or another emotion, right? What action would you be taking? The next one is, how can I love all the parts of me and cultivate self-compassion? Like Brittany mentioned in the first of this webinar, we're our harshest critic and we're hardest on ourselves. And if we're confident, we don't need to be, right? We can have self-compassion and be confident. So how can you love all the parts of you and cultivate self-compassion. The last one on the bottom says, what practices can I develop to hold on to this belief? I am enough. I am worthy of love. I am an infinite soul. So it's going to take some practice. So if that's a quiet moment every morning, reminding you of your empowering thought, I love all the parts of me. Or if it's prayer or meditation, whatever your practice is, if it's writing down, like if you journal a lot, if you need to write that every day, if you need to hang it up, what practices are you going to do to hold on to that belief? Because it will take practice. The final page has, how will confidence help me live with courage, compassion, and connection? Because those are our innate desires. That's how we live a wholehearted life. So how will confidence help you live with courage, compassion, and connection? And then these other two boxes are just those answering your inner critic and those empowering thoughts. And I've left you room in those boxes to add your own. So I'm hoping that worksheet, that you will take some time for yourself, that you'll just set aside a quiet, or maybe not a quiet moment at this point, to really think and journal and do those. So confidence is truly the key to achieving your full potential, because when you're operating from the feeling of confidence, your action is different. If you're operating from pride, this action and result is different. If you're operating from shame, your action and result are different. It matters. You have to get to this. And in order to feel this, you have to manage your thoughts. So it helps you in every aspect of your life, relationships, career, your finances, everything, right? And it allows you to live the life that you want. It also allows you to handle life's challenges because you trust yourself. You know you're worthy, and you know you'll figure this out. You always have. You always have. And it will also help you achieve your biggest dreams. So thank you so much for joining us tonight, and thank you to Brittany for this opportunity. I do want to wish you guys the best of luck on this journey, and I do hope that you'll do the worksheet and really try to develop this skill in becoming more confident. I just want to leave you with this, that you are whole, that you're exactly how you should be, that you are complete, that you're the perfect version of you, and that you are never, ever meant to be compared. You were created just as you are, and that you are enough.
Thank you, Ember. I loved the worksheet. I've been filling it out, and I wrote down, we were never meant to be compared. That was a big one for me. Thank you. We weren't.
We weren't.
I also loved, my definition at the beginning of confidence was the belief that I can do something. But after listening to you, confidence is nothing to do with to do. Has nothing. Yeah, it's all about my identity and who I believe I am. I always grew up thinking that if I was confident, then I wasn't being humble. And so I would avoid it at all costs. And I think that's part of where my inner critic came from, is because I was trying to be humble. I was trying to be Christ-like. And so I thought I couldn't be confident.
Right.
But you made it so crystal clear. And I'm actually going to have Hallie listen to this tomorrow. I recorded it. I'm going to put it up on my YouTube page so we can share it with our friends and family. And I'm going to print off another worksheet for Hallie and have Hallie listen to it too. So thank you, Ember.
Okay, thank you,
everybody, for joining us. I hope you got something out of it like I did, and good luck filling out the rest of your worksheet.
Thanks so much.
Bye, guys. Ember, you're wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you letting me do it. It's been great. and great for me. So
I love